Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting for Monday, October 6, 2014. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Here?
Here.
Trustee Hein?
Here.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
Trustee Brady?
Here.
Trustee Lang?
Here.
Trustee Kruger?
Present.
President Argyris?
Here. Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for September 2nd.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Here, second by Trustee Vogel. Roll call, please.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Argyris?
Yes, thank you. Changes to the agenda?
None this evening, thank you.
Okay. Citizens' concerns and comments.
Mary Papantos?
Good evening. Last May, I attended the joint meeting between the Village of Wheeling, Prospect Heights, and the Airport Board. At that time, Mr. Priester laid out his proposal for a plan for the runway, which very specifically included the expansion of corporations around the runway, as well as expanding a runway to 7,000 feet. And afterwards, people who have complained and voiced opinions have all been told, don't worry, it's just a plan, nothing's going to go through. However, Mr. Priester's contract does specifically state investigation of alteration of runway and or construction of new runways. Many people have voiced concerns, those of us who live near the airport, because of the noise, the pollution, and the safety. We would like at this time for the boards of both Prospect Heights and Wheeling to consider an advisory referendum as to whether or not any runway should be expanded for next April. Thank you.
Mr. Furlow, you got any comments on that?
No, for next April, it's possible, not for this, obviously this election.
Trustee Lang, you're on the board.
Well, to address the expansion of the runway, there's no plans yet. It's not to say that it can't happen, but there's nothing decided yet. The reason a lot of residents are complaining is because someone has sent around dozens and dozens, hundreds, I should say, of flyers to neighborhoods all around the eastern part of Wheeling. So of course they're concerned. And they're concerned that something's happening over there, because I haven't seen this flyer, but it's getting people nervous. Understood, but I think the flyer's doing more damage than any plans in the process right now. There's nothing there. I do have to tell you, Mr. Priester will be in probably in the next in an upcoming meeting, definitely at the airport. At the next meeting in third week. And he'll do his presentation. He was out of town last week, but he'll give you an update of where he is on the process. The airport board is not involved in it. This board is not involved in it. So that's all I can say to it right now. There's really no plans. I've heard no updates on, and I've not heard anything other than the continued talk about runway expansion, but there is nothing definitive on it. I swear.
Well, let me just piggyback on that, Manager Sfondelis. Have you seen anything or any correspondence with the airport manager over there regarding this is what we're going or what they're doing, or we got approvals to do anything?
Absolutely none.
And just to remind everybody, any approvals of any changes to the airport layout plan will have to be approved by this board and by the city of Prospect Heights. So until that happens, we'll see what happens. But we haven't seen anything.
And to follow up on that, I'm not sure when the plan will, or when the master plan will, first phase of it, will even be presented.
Okay, thanks. One moment. You didn't put your name on the list?
No.
Okay, but we have somebody else first, right?
She has a flyer. That's
She just wants to show the flyer.
Okay.
What's
First of all, go to the microphone, I'll look at this, and state your name. Okay, thank you.
What is this plan? What's in this plan?
Well, again, this is making reference to the probably thousands of flyers that have been going around from individuals in that area. And I think you just heard Trustee Lang make a statement saying there's nothing being proposed yet. There's absolutely nothing being proposed yet, other than somebody just doing this. So
Well, it's planned for expansion.
it's not a plan. A plan is when you have a plan. There is no plan. All this is right now is just talk and about regarding other things other than just the runway. Mr.
Absolutely.
Priester's hired to look at other infrastructure improvements or land acquisitions for around that airport.
Complete
Not just the
economic change in that area
Totally.
as well.
So, right now, there's nothing. Okay. Anybody else?
Ms. LaGretti?
Marianne? Hi.
Good evening. Mr. Priester has his email address directly on the airport website, and if you have concerns or comments or questions, you're able to contact him directly. His information is on the Chicago Executive Airport. Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I am here this evening representing my family and friends of the Meadowbrook subdivision area. Since the back of this subdivision had been opened up, everyone's going through where the industrial park is. People who have been there 30, 40 years, quote unquote, is when the hell did this all get built? That was a few of them. I am here this evening I don't know how to request, I know you as trustees passed the ordinance on the no idle ordinance, and there's quite a bit of traffic, quite a bit of semi-trucks right back there. I've driven back there, and it's very congested. They're all from out of town. It's deliveries. Trucks make the road go round. We need them, but they don't need to sit there and idle behind all of these homes. I haven't seen any signs. I don't know if there's something in the works in terms of possibly getting some signs up to let the residents and businesses know. I know you had passed it, you announced it. Not everybody catches all of that. Bob Leaders, he owns Sunnyside over there. I'm sure if you just called him or reached out to him, they're living and driving around Wheeling. There's some main areas where this congested diesel trucks are running for obviously no reason, or apparently no reason. There are on Chaddock Drive, both sides of Chaddock Drive, both sides of Northgate, off of Lake Cook and Dundee, if we can get maybe some signs there, if that's something would be appropriate. I don't know how to request this. They were just concerned there's a lot of congestion, and there's something that you can do about this. So if you can help them out and put a sign up, I don't know if you need to get a petition. It's muy fácil, but if you speak Spanish. I don't know how that goes about, if you can fill me in on that one.
Well, I believe everywhere you're talking about is private property, at least as far as the factories themselves.
Well,
So-
what my thoughts are all of the people who come in from out of town would not be aware of this ordinance, first of all. I'm talking about the major roads going into those areas. I'm not one for a bunch of signs, but there's specific areas on Chaddock, north and south and Chaddock Drive, off of Hintz, off of Northgate. I'm sure the families at Fresh Farms would appreciate one there. There are certain major roads that are off of Marcourt is one of them. Glen off of Hintz is one of them that these trucks come in and out. And if we could somehow inform them by having a sign up. I know the caucus that you belonged to years ago, they had a discount. It was 20% discount on these specific signs for this. This is a few years ago. I don't know if they still do that, but if there's some way we can look into that.
Sure.
And specifically the areas that this happens, there's just a few key areas. So if we can look into that, that would be appreciated.
Sure.
I also received a letter, and in the letter, it was to annexed areas. And did the whole village get this, or about the businesses?
115 residents got that letter. Everyone who was previously annexed anywhere in the community.
Oh, okay, because I heard you say make sure it's for the whole
The whole
community.
It is.
Yeah, which I appreciate, because that's how it should be. I appreciate that. And in that, there were some things that I couldn't find anywhere. There would be citations issued as of January for a place called the Parkway, and I couldn't find that in any of what your description. I know the general, what a parkway is, or I know it's a description, but what specifically does that mean? Some of my neighbors, first of all, some of them didn't receive the letter, so you know, but some of them had that specific question of Parkway and what the village, how they see that. So I'm curious on what that is.
Well, first, I mean, whoever,
Mark, want to grab that one?
Yeah, I think what the letter said was that there's no parking on the street. Some streets that people were sent letters to, there is no curb, and so there's no parking on the street. And so the parking ordinances of the village will start to be enforced as of January 1st.
Okay, so there's no parking on the street at all? Is that, I'm
That's
just
right.
trying to clarify it for
That's right.
you.
Some streets in the village are wide enough for parking, and some are not.
Okay, so that was it. Okay, thank you, that answers that question. And then I just had one more thing. This tragedy that happened that nobody's talked about other than Officer Wolf is sad and very upsetting. And I don't know if you can't talk about it, there's really not much to say about the accident that happened. But I'm here to say I didn't want ignorance or somebody not having their facts straight come across on any level. And a few of the facts, as I see them, are this officer, he's one of us. He was doing his job. Not a lot of jobs call for, that time of day or this position that he was in. And I know there's not too much you can say to that. My heart and my thoughts go out to the Morales family, but there's more than one family involved. And I did not want things not said. This particular officer, I don't know personally, I've met a few times, but his entire career was spent guiding our youth of Wheeling, the middle school, the high schoolers. This is what he did. He was actually in the school, elbow to elbow with our educators, and his entire career, as I see it, was such a positive and influential to the youth. I have actually had a couple of young men come up to me and I want to write a letter to the judge, or, people wanting to do something, and I'm sure the family at this point just wants to be left alone. And I hate to bring up anything, but this has not been talked about other than, publicly. And I was wondering if as a village or as a police department, you can open, not your door, your mailbox, to receiving something from people, the youth that he has helped on so many levels, open to receiving something that speaks as to his character, because he was a stand-up gentleman from my understanding. And this position that he's been in, and his family, more than one family suffering, and my heart goes out to the Morales family again. But I did not want to lose sight of what this gentleman has done with his life and his career, and to have this unfortunate tragedy. I was wondering if as a village you can open it up and then go one step further, go to District 21 and go to District 214 and say we're open to receiving letters as to his character, if you feel so, and we will make sure that gets into the right hand of whoever needs to see it on whatever level this gentleman will be judged on. So if we could, I don't know if you were even allowed to say anything, but it's not that it's okay, we can't talk about it, because it happened and it's a tragedy. And it's just not a lot to be said about it, other than he was one of us, and our hearts go out to their family just as well. And that has not been said, and I just wanted to say that.
Thanks,
That was
Mary.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, that's all, Mr. President.
Staff reports, Finance Director Monson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just take this opportunity tonight to introduce our new Finance Director, Assistant Finance Director, excuse me.
I got nervous. I thought this was going to be
I just took my job away from
Coming the way to
myself.
do it.
Let me clarify. Assistant Finance Director Brian Smith, who's in the audience. Some of you may recognize Brian because he worked for us for 3.5 years between 2008 and 2012. More recently, he has been serving primarily as the Assistant Finance Director in Carpentersville. So after leaving us, he went to Carpentersville, and now he's back. He's kind of like the LeBron James of the finance world. He took his talent somewhere else, and now he's coming home to help us win championships here. But Brian is a certified public accountant. He graduated from North Central College with a degree in accounting, and I'd just like to introduce him to the board. And if you have any comments you'd like to make, now would be the time to do it.
Well, just very quickly, I'm really grateful for the opportunity Mike's giving me to come back. I really enjoyed my time here the first time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it through a different set of eyes this time. So we're going to look at all our internal controls and our efficiencies, and we'll try to improve on them a little bit. And again, I'm just really, really grateful for the opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Welcome back. Chief McIsaac.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to let the board know that the fire department has entered into a program. As you know, that the department has historically reached out for kids programs in the community. And this year, the department, in conjunction with also the Firefighters Association, is participating in a national charity called Operation Warm. What that is a charity that raises funds that are used in conjunction with the Rotary Club to purchase winter coats, brand new winter coats for identified at-risk children specifically within the community. We have partnered with Holmes Junior High, who is providing us with the assistance to identify those families in the community. And it's a worthwhile program, and just wanted to let the board know what we're doing.
Where can the coats be dropped off anywhere? Or?
They're not accepting coats. It's a donation program so that the coats are all standardized. And there's an online website. It's a national organization, www.operationwarm/wheeling will take you to a page where to make sure the funds that are donated will come back directly to the village.
Great. And we'll get that stuff posted on our website and everything, John?
Sure.
Okay. Good. Thanks, Chief. Community Development Director Janik.
Thank you. I want to announce, starting on Monday, between Public Works and CD, the Patch and Grind program will start again this year. As you remember last year, at the end of the season, we did a bunch of patching on village streets. We're doing the same thing this year. We're going to do a bunch of streets. We're going to do some, last year we did a lot of patching and grinding along the edge of the curbing on both sides of numerous streets. This year we're going to do the same thing, but we're also going to be going around town, and there's some large areas that were affected by the winter weather last year, large patch areas, not next to the curbing, but some in the middle of the streets, some on certain lanes of streets. But I just want to let you know that this is probably going to take about 3 weeks, and there'll be signage up, more signs than there was last year, and they'll go from one area to another in the village. But I wanted to let you know it's going to start on Monday.
Good. Quick question. On the west side of town, where you just did a lot of the water work at Birch and all that area.
Yes, correct.
What do you plan on doing those streets?
I believe that though, I got to look at the schedule. They're going to get patched obviously where the water mains were put in this year, but I don't know where they are on the schedule for say full width grinding.
Okay, I drove through it yesterday and it's kind of beat up around there. I mean, understandably, they just got done with the job, but it'd be nice to get those streets.
Actually, that job has about 2 more weeks to go. They're doing the service lines right now. They put the mains in, they chlorinated them, and now they're reconnecting the service lines from the new main to the homes.
Good. Thanks. Economic Development Director Melanthropy.
Thank you, President Argyris. I just wanted to let everyone know the Wheeling Prospect Heights Chamber of Commerce and the Restaurant Row Hospitality Group will host the Taste of the Town event on Thursday, October 9th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Westin Chicago North Shore at 601 North Milwaukee Avenue. The theme of the event is Celebrate a Healthy Harvest. Last year, over 600 patrons enjoyed a great evening with samples from over 20 restaurants, wineries, and breweries, including Tuscany and Benihana, Cooper's Hawk, Bob Chin's, Buca di Beppo, Pete Miller, Serenello's, Spears. It's really a great evening. There's information on the Chamber of Commerce website at wphchamber.com. The evening will feature live entertainment, cooking demonstrations, silent auction, and raffle prizes. So really encourage everyone out there to join us. It's going to be a really fun evening. Thank you, President Juris.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
You're not on the list, but I'm going to ask Director Stavros something. We had a meeting last week over at the Northwest Municipal Conference, and the hot topic is a lot of communities are facing is salt prices. How do we stand for this coming year with regarding our prices of salt? Do we have a supply? How bad do we get hit with pricing? Compared to some of these communities, I'm hearing over $140 a ton, which is really putting a burden on their budgets.
Well, that's correct. A lot of the communities in the area have been faced with huge increases. We were fortunate enough, we had an option to renew, and with a maximum of 5% increase on the contract. So I opted to roll the dice. I didn't see the market going down as far as salt with the shortages that were being experienced after January. So we signed a contract with the state purchasing and for 2,500 tons with 20% over we could buy, which would give us a maximum of 3,000 tons. And the price came in at, I believe, $57.06 for Cargill delivered.
Wow.
So I believe looking and talking to the other municipalities in the area, we're probably the cheapest in the area, luckily.
And we've gotten our supply already?
We have a full dome. We have 2,300 to 2,500 tons in there approximately, which was purchased under last year's contract, and we are contracted for 3,000 more this year.
Right.
At the 5706.
Wow, that's great. Good job, staff. Good job, PW. That saved us some money, huh? So, all right, 13A.
13A, resolution authorizing acceptance of a National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Illinois Department of Transportation grant award, sustained traffic enforcement program grant through federal fiscal year 2015.
Thank you. Chief Benson.
Thank you, President Argyris. The STEP, or the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, is intended to reduce the incidence of motor vehicle crashes and the resulting injuries and fatalities through increased high-visible enforcement of occupant restraint, impaired driving, distracted driving, speed, pedestrian safety, and licensing and registration laws during 7 national and state enforcement campaigns. The 7 periods are Halloween, Thanksgiving, the Christmas New Year's week, St. Patrick's Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Labor Day. Data shows alcohol involvement and unbuckled fatalities are greatest during these time periods. The enforcement effort is paired with a strong media effort during each enforcement period. This is designed to deter potential impaired drivers and unbuckled occupants in vehicles. The objective is met by grant funding to pay overtime to have wheeling officers work exclusively on traffic enforcement details to target these types of violation. Contingent upon the board approval, the Wheeling Police Department will be awarded $49,140, which is up from $41,984 last year. This is a reimbursable grant with no matching funds by the village.
Questions?
So moved.
Second.
I got questions. Anybody else got any questions? Trustee Lang?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of enforcing safety in this manner. It just, with some of the road stops, and some of them are conducted pretty late at night, but you know, we work really hard to bring people into this town, and I just hate to chase them away and chase away the ones that are that we want here. You know, so what I'm saying is, the folks that are driving safe, is there a way to just be courteous to those who have gone through the checkpoints? I know everyone doesn't get stopped, but the ones that do get stopped, is there a way to project a little more courtesy to those folks who are driving safe and who are following the rules, so they don't look at the village as someone that or a place that they don't want to be in anymore because they're concerned?
I think we do a good job advising the motoring public during roadside safety checks of the reason for the enforcement activity, and we try to be as minimally invasive. As a matter of fact, the typical encounter is going to be less than that of a traffic stop on the street. We have our people stationed and ready that when a select number of cars are pulled in, that each vehicle is attended to in a timely fashion. The reason for the stop is explained, and if there's no violations, they're quickly sent on their way. And just so you know, each of these campaigns are well advertised, and I'd like to think that the most responsible adults understand that, you know, it's always dangerous to be impaired while driving, but there's certain times of the year where it's even more dangerous because of the holidays. And these campaigns are well published in the paper and our newsletters, and I do understand what you're saying about during the stop to try and be courteous and efficient with the motorist time, and I think we do our best.
Okay. And are these funds just for roadside stops, or are there other events or other?
No, sir. That's just a small portion of it. It's typically directed patrols to areas of the town at times of the day and days of the week where it's more likely that we see impaired driving and serious crashes.
Thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Trustee Vogel?
Just to piggyback on Trustee Lane's comment, I was up in Madison a few weeks ago by the Reliance Center, and it's not a main highway, but it's a pretty busy thoroughfare, and there was a road check there at night, and you go through it, and the last thing they do is give you a sticker if you're clean, and it just says thank you for your safe driving. It was just kind of it made you feel a heck of a lot better, like you weren't a criminal anymore. So if there's something like that can be done, I mean, that might, hey, Wheeling's a pretty nice place to do business with.
We typically have some type of brochure that explains the reason behind the roadside safety checks. We can certainly add a couple lines to that.
Yeah, I think it'd go a long way.
Smiley face.
Thanks.
I have
smiley face.
Question, Chief. Who dictates the campaign dates, you know, the holidays? Is it mandatory that we do these 7?
It's part of the grant that they've identified these periods of being the highest incidence of fatalities in personal injury crash times. They're going to give us the period. We decide the exact time and date, and we publish it in the paper prior.
So it has to be those campaign dates, those holidays?
We can do it anytime we want, but as a part of the grant for the funds we're accepting, we're agreeing to have special enforcement during the identified periods of the year.
And this past year, based on those campaign dates, were there many violations or tickets issued or DUIs issued?
We can go through the numbers if you'd like.
Sure.
The total hours worked last year, and taking into account, we have an additional $8,000, which equates to about an additional 100 hours. So this is with 100 less hours. There was 576.5 hours allocated to the grant. There's a total of 974 vehicles stopped, resulting in 7 DUIs, 39 suspended or revoked driver licenses, 5 felonies, 1 fugitive apprehension, 3 drug arrests, 150 speeding violations, 7 improper lane usage violations, 413 seatbelt tickets, 8 child safety seat violations, and a total of 920 traffic citations.
During 7 campaigns?
Yes, throughout the grant, yes.
Most one per stop.
Again, just to echo what Trustee Lang said, I just don't want to have that reputation out there. I mean, we should be doing this every day, not just on 7 campaign days.
We do it every day, but this gives us the direct patrol time.
But I don't want to scare people that are coming from out of town into this community to have a nice dinner at Tuscany, who are my parents,
and having a fare being pulled over or just keeping people away. We work too hard to try to build up Restaurant Row and the establishments that we have in here. And it's a great idea, and your numbers prove it to be a great idea. But again, I don't want to have that reputation to our neighbors to the west where people literally don't go through that neighborhood to the west because of their aggressiveness of pulling everybody over. You got a red car, you get pulled over, you do this, you know, it's ridiculous. Bob. Just teasing.
It does work, though.
Yeah, I know, it's great. Trustee Brady?
Thanks. This grant is for overtime, whatever it takes to enforce the rules during these periods of time, right?
Yes.
Okay, does that grant money cover the additional overtime that we're using?
It covers all the overtime for the campaign up to $49,140, which is approximately 670 hours of directed patrol overtime efforts.
It covers up to, well, the grant money is 40 what?
49,000.
49,000. Is that what we're spending on overtime?
That's what we're spending out of this grant and overtime for the specific campaigns for alcohol-related and driving-related offenses.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. There's nothing, Trustee Lang?
Public Works, are they involved in this at all with setting up barricades or cones or?
Public Works provides us with the tools and equipment that they have, but not their personnel. They give us a vehicle with barricades and a reader board sign, and our personnel bring it out there. But they're very helpful in providing us with their equipment ahead of time.
Okay, so it's not touching any other departments as well, but if it did, you'd probably cover those funds for that department?
Yes, but it hasn't.
Yeah, okay.
Do we know down the road? Revenue-wise?
Yeah, Bill, obviously, this program is meant to create a safe community and protect the residents and the travelers through our community. Do you have any idea what the revenue side is from all those citations?
I don't, because when we get our revenue sharing from the court, it doesn't break down whether or not this was from the campaign, whether the speeding ticket was a directed patrol or this DUI was part of a campaign. We just get basically a listing of the numbers, what the fine was, and of that fine, what our percentage is, but it's not broken down or separated. But that does go to the village. That does not go back to the granting source.
Okay.
Thanks.
Motion by Trustee Harris, second by Trustee Kruger. Roll call.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Argyros?
Yes. Thanks, Chief. 13B.
13B, resolution authorizing the acceptance for the renewal of an Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority Victims of Crime Act grant award for the Victim Assistance Coordinator position.
Thank you. Director Weezer.
Good evening. The Village of Wheeling has received funding through the Victims of Crime Act, or VOCA, administered through the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority since 2003. The grant funds the Victim Services Coordinator position in the Social Services Division of the Human Services Department. Funding through the VOCA grant has provided the opportunity for the Village of Wheeling to offer comprehensive services to victims of crime and their families. The Victim Services Coordinator provides needed services such as the coordination and delivery of police-related victim services, court-related advocacy, support services, information and referral services, obtaining orders of protection, follow-up with contacts, and crisis counseling. The grant amount is $68,458 and has remained the same this year.
Thank you. Trustee Kruger, got any comments on it?
No, I do not.
Anybody else? Trustee Brady?
One comment.
Trustee Lang?
Just, Sherry, how long has this position been open or available? Have we been doing it on an ongoing basis, or is it?
This position has been existing in the village since 2003. It's currently filled.
Okay, which I thought. What happens, for instance, if next year they don't offer this grant, for instance? Then what are our options for this position?
Well, I'm not really sure. I believe that the option would be whether the village would fund that position or that position would go away.
Okay. Because sometimes with the grants, they work out great when it comes to that they're constantly refilling them, but what if they don't one year? And I just wanted to know what our options were, and it sounds like we have a lot of thinking to do, whether we want to continue or not.
The Victims of Crime Act is a federal act, and there are specific funds set aside for victim services and distributed to the states, and they've existed since the 1980s. We have received no information from the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority that these funds will not be provided on a continuing basis. If we were to hear that, we would definitely come back to the board and let them know.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Lang, second by trustee Vogel. Roll call.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
President Argyros?
Yes, thank you. 13C.
Resolution authorizing the village president to execute a grant agreement regarding congregate meals at the Wheeling Pavilion Senior Center.
Thank you. Director Weezer.
Good evening again. The Department of Human Services is requesting the acceptance of the federal fiscal year 2015 grant from Age Options for the continuation of the Wheeling Pavilion Senior Center Congregate Dining Lunch at Pavilion program. This year, the grant amount has increased from $21,657 to $22,307, with the expectation to continue to serve 4,413 meals this year. Since the beginning, the program has grown steadily. At the beginning of the program, participants were averaging about 10 to 12 a day. Currently, our program is averaging 30 to 40 meals per day. We serve meals Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The program has had another successful year. We provided 4,122 meals this year.
Great. Any questions?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Brady, second by trustee Vogel. Roll call.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
President Argyros?
Yes, thank you. 13D.
Resolution authorizing change order number 1 to the contract with Instaform Technologies USA LLC for the jointly bid 2014 sewer lining project.
Director Janik.
Thank you. Staff is requesting approval of a change order to the contract with our sewer lining company in Situform. The change order is approximately $4,000. The reason for the change order is a difference in the pipe sizes that we believe were underground. There were some larger pipe sizes which caused more material to be used. There was a credit. However, some of the pipes were already made of fiberglass, plastic, actually, plastic PVC. Those did not have to be lined. So the net increase to the contract is $3,973.30.
7330. Thank you. Questions?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Heer.
Second.
Second by trustee Lang. Roll call.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
President Argyros?
Yes, thank you. 13E.
13E, resolution ratifying a supplemental water purchase and sales contract by and between the Northwest Water Commission and the City of Des Plaines.
Thank you. Manager Spondelis.
Thank you. Staying on the theme of good news, this evening I'm happy to present to you a contract for the City of Des Plaines to receive water from the Northwest Water Commission. As you are aware, the Village of Wheeling is a founding member of the Northwest Water Commission along with Palatine, Buffalo Grove, and Arlington Heights. Every community is given an allocation for gallons of water per day through IDOT from Lake Michigan. And in aggregate, the Commission has an excess capacity of 6 million gallons that is currently available to us for our use or to be sold as an asset to a customer. For quite some time, we've been negotiating and authoring a contract because the Commission has never sold water to a customer before. It has been solely for the purpose of supplying fresh water to the 4 member communities. So we've worked through the details of putting together a contract with an end user in mind, and that is the City of Des Plaines, who is looking to blend their water supply from what they get through the city of Chicago, but because the city's rates are rather exorbitant, it made sense to them to spend the money to put in the infrastructure required in order to tap in our system and purchase some water from the Northwest Water Commission. As I said, we the Commission, not the Village of Wheeling, we the Commission have an excess capacity of 6 million gallons, and that is a worst case scenario. Well, we have a capacity of 6 million gallons to sell. We based our ability to sell on a worst case scenario. We did a trend line backwards, looked at our highest peak days, and considering growth, considering increases in usage due to drought, whatever it may be, we were comfortable with selling 5 million gallons a day, which leaves a 1 million gallon buffer between our actual excess and what we are selling to the city of Des Plaines. So we've vetted this not only through the professionals at the commission, but also through an engineering firm to make sure that this was in the best interest of the commission. And then looking at it from a revenue standpoint, certainly it's in the best interest of the Village of Wheeling. There will be a profit of about $6,000 a day. It comes up to $2.4 million a year for the commission. That money will be used for future infrastructure projects as well as rate stabilization for the Village of Wheeling. So while the money is going through the commission, the Village of Wheeling realizes some significant benefit in the fact that infrastructure projects for the commission that otherwise would have been bonded and paid for as 1/4, the Village of Wheeling being 1/4 of the membership communities, that money is going to be used directly for those purposes, as well as a 5-year plan at least that will help rate stabilize, which means our purchase price from the commission will not increase for at least the next 5 years. With that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Trustee Lang?
John, what's the shape of our main from Evanston? Is it pretty good shape?
It is in quite good shape. Obviously, it's something that's monitored as much as one can monitor it, monitored and tested regularly. It is in quite good shape. That said, we are looking for another, we call it a straw, which is another access point to the lake, which would be a major project and could provide us with some other potential beyond the redundancy that would be offered, but it's in great shape.
Okay, and you bring up a good point. What happened if that main goes out of commission, I mean, for a length of time? What's our backup water supply, our towers?
Our towers. Yeah. Each community keeps a reserve. They don't have to, but they do because of exactly that fact. With there only being a single source right now, which is that line from Evanston, should it go down, we would have to rely on our wells and our towers for capacity and our wells for new water until that main could be repaired.
And will this, having Des Plaines as a customer, help pay for a second straw, as you call it? Or start the way?
If we moved forward on a second straw, we're talking a several $100 million project. So no, it would be more for the short-term infrastructure needs of the existing system. So that's really what that's for. And the idea of moving forward with a second straw is still just an idea. We're vetting some options, and when we have something to really consider, it will come to you for a vote.
Okay, and then last question, we really don't, based on your numbers, we really don't have any more allocation to sell to another community or to, do we?
There's two answers to that. We as the commission have that, there's two we's. One, we as a commission have that 1 million gallons, which we need to be careful about because that's our cushion. But if there were a small community that needed 100,000 gallons a day, that could happen. So that's the first we. We as the Village of Wheeling have our own allocation that we do not have access capacity because there are some towns, Palatine for example, sells to Deer Creek, because Palatine's allocation is higher than their average daily use. So they are able, the Village of Palatine, are able to sell to Deer Park at a healthy profit. We, however, are at our individual peak for the Village of Wheeling. So we couldn't. The commission could, we could not.
Thank you.
I got a couple of questions real quick. Total allocation from Evanston to the commission itself is how many millions of gallons a day? Correct me if I'm wrong, it was like 50-some million, wasn't it?
It's about 55 million.
About 55.
That's correct, in round numbers.
In our peak with the 4 communities, the 4 membership, is around 38 million a day at a peak?
It's 6 million below.
Well, 6 million below is really the conservative worst scenario.
Oh,
But
actual below?
Actually, it's
Is
far more than that.
substantially below, correct.
Right.
Correct.
So our numbers are probably, at peak time, probably around 15 to 17 million gallons a day.
That's
not
correct.
being allocated anywhere else.
That's correct.
And where we committed to 5 million gallons a day to Des Plaines. But at worst scenario, you did the conservative, the commission did, which was smart to do. Worst scenario, we got an extra million gallons that, at peak, beyond peak, that we would have regardless of what's going on.
That's absolutely correct. The water that is being used, not just in the Village of Wheeling and not just at the commission, but in general, over the last 10 years has dropped by 2/3.
Right.
We collectively are using 1/3 the water we used to be.
And that number is what, on an average, for the Village of Wheeling? What are we using right now, do you know?
We have 4 million gallons a day.
4 million? And our allocation is what?
Well, there's an IDOT allocation, there's a state
Okay.
allocation.
But it's beyond that. It's beyond the 4.
Well, there's 2 different allocations.
Okay.
There's an IDNR location, which we are at, which is why we can't sell water to another community.
Okay.
But the IDOT allocation we are under, but that's not what you have to go by if we were selling water as a single entity.
Okay. I just wanted to be a little bit more knowledgeable for our
Absolutely.
folks out there.
And well, then if I may expand on that a little bit, part of this agreement requires the city of Des Plaines to continue their connection with the city of Chicago. So should we, the 4 member communities, ever need that water, we as a member take priority over a customer, and that's written in the agreement. So part of the agreement is that they retain for the full length of the contract their connection to the city of Chicago so that they have another supply of water should we need to pull ours back. So even in every worst case scenario you could come up with,
We're covered.
We're covered.
Good. Any other questions?
Trustee Brady.
Trustee Brady, I'm sorry.
What part of Des Plaines' water use are we covering with this 5 million gallons, percentage-wise, would you say?
It's the majority,
Majority of it?
but not the total.
Something don't add up, because you're saying our allocation, our use per day is how many gallons?
4 million.
4 million. And the city of Des Plaines, which is about 4 or 5 times bigger than us, is only using a little,
They're using just over 6.
hard to believe. This community is so huge.
Well, we have a lot of industry, which may account for it, but those are the numbers. They're just over 6 million a day.
On page 6, it talks about, is it 6? Hang on, excuse me 1 minute. 6. Supplemental water supplies, emergency supplies. We turned down a new well last year, whatever it was, which leaves us with 2 water wells, which we cannot mix with city water, Lake Michigan water. Plus, if we had to shut that source down, we couldn't supply this community with 2 wells. What are we going to do if there's an emergency?
I'm not sure what the question is. How do we supply?
In other words, we are not allowed to mix the incoming water from Evanston with our tower water.
No,
according to this
the
agreement.
tower water is Evanston water.
Well, where do we put our water?
Our
Well water.
storage,
Our well water.
we don't store well water.
You don't store it?
Am I misspeaking?
No, we don't currently store well water. We pump it to waste, and it's tested on a monthly basis for emergency purposes in case it's needed. If it's needed, we could put the well into service.
We have 2 wells. What could they produce in gallons a day?
Two, 2.8, maybe 3.
So we'd be short about half of the water we need to run the community.
Well,
is there a way around that, or other than having another well? I just want to make sure we're protected, because more and more, everybody's after Great Lakes water, everybody, including Arizona and points west. One of these days, things are going to start happening, and we're going to be standing here short of water. You know, we've all seen the cycle these past 30 years of what's happened to Lake Michigan. At some point, they're making artificial breakwaters out there to keep the waves from knocking over the buildings. At other point, the lake was 5-6 foot below what it normally is. So, you know, that could give us a little headache once the water starts really dropping, if it happens in the future, that our allocation is going to be cut. And that's set by the, the Great Lakes Association. Every state has an allocation of water, and it's based on the water that you put back into Lake Michigan. We don't put any water back into Lake Michigan, so we're always going to be on the short end of getting Lake Michigan water. If you're, there's a huge article about that several years ago. All the states, Wisconsin, Michigan, et cetera, Minnesota, they have unlimited access to Great Lakes water because they let their streams and everything else run back into the lake. We reversed the flow of the Chicago River. We've done everything else. All our sewage goes to west. Nothing goes back into Lake Michigan. So we're on the short end. The state of Illinois is on the short end of allowable access to that water. And I'm a little concerned, especially with, you know, in this agreement, I find it on page 7, you got this subsequent customers, that you have the right to sell water to subsequent customers. You know, even though, well, you don't put a limit that you can only do that at 1 million gallons. What does that have to do in the contract with Des Plaines? Who we can sell water to? Or what, giving you the power to sell water? You're making this in an agreement with Des Plaines that the commission has the right to sell water.
Besides the city of Des Plaines.
Huh? Right. It's
besides
water.
the city. Right.
Yeah. Right. This is an agreement with Des Plaines to sell them water. What is the permission that the commission can sell water to other people doing in this agreement?
Is this a question about who has the authority to approve customers?
Well, it says here, additional subsequent customer, the city acknowledges that the commission may enter into a contract for the sale by the commission of potable water to customers other than the city.
Right.
Right.
If I may, I think what that is, Trustee Brady, is essentially a non-exclusivity provision.
Right.
Des Plaines cannot claim exclusive right to buy the commission's water. The commission is just making it clear to Des Plaines that it can sell to other customers beside Des Plaines. It's a non-exclusive relationship. That's all that means.
And it's kind of a little misleading when you first read it. You know, that the commission has the authority to sell water to somebody else other than, now there's 5 in the group.
No. There are 4 member communities. Des Plaines, who, by the way, has already approved this contract, and I'm sorry, I should have said that the commission approved this contract, and the city of Des Plaines has already approved this contract. However, it doesn't become intact until each of the 4 member communities, which is what we're discussing tonight, approve the contract. Arlington Heights, Palatine, and Buffalo Grove are also having this conversation right now. So they understand this provision, and it is exactly what Jim said. This is just, as I had explained, there's that 1 million gallon gap per day. If there's another customer that comes in and says, we need 100,000 gallons per day, we could sell to them. It's simply a non-exclusivity. There's...
Well, you know, we've all been through drought years, and we've all been through rainy years, and I just want to make sure we're covered. And this isn't going to come back to bite us later on if we need additional water for ourselves.
These are great questions, and I would say just a couple of things. One, the source is the same, whether Des Plaines buys water from the commission and pays us the profit, or they buy water from the city of Chicago and pay them the profit. So no matter what, the source is the same. So should there be a situation where there is a drought or a restriction on the water that is sold to the state of Illinois, this contract won't have an impact on us because we would all be in the same boat anyway because the source is the same. That said, even if that happened, the 4 member communities are protected. The customer agreement is secondary to the member agreement. So in any scenario, our water is protected as a member of the commission. We own that water. We have no obligation to sell it to Des Plaines. We come first.
I mean, after Des Plaines goes through all the expense of hooking up to our system, we can just cut it off for whatever
Well,
reason?
there are provisions that we are bound to. However, in an emergency, the 4-member communities get the water before any customer gets the water.
What about the impact on the people in Des Plaines that we're serving, and all of a sudden we cut their source off?
That's why we require them to stay connected to the city of Chicago.
But isn't it illegal to shut somebody's water off?
They wouldn't.
We wouldn't. That's why they have another source of water.
They could always go back to fully getting their water from Chicago.
That's correct.
They're doing this to save big money.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
And I'm not against it. There's a lot of ifs and can-dos in here that it doesn't make any sense to me when I'm reading through this. It just seems, I don't know, it just seems it flies in the face of what a good contract is. I would never accept a contract from anybody that says at any one time they can just shut you off, period.
Well, but that's not true. I mean, there are provisions in here, and I don't know that this helps any, but 2 attorneys from the commission, the Des Plaines attorney, and then the 4-member community attorneys all went through this contract. So I don't know that makes it any better, but, I mean, no offense.
I read it from a guy looking at it as a citizen using a little common sense and trying to read through the lawyer language that they install on these things. One last thing. My last recollection of the main tank over here down on Wolf Road, this is only a 10 million gallon tank. And that's supplying all of this water to maybe 5 communities now. I remember when it cracked and they tried filling it up.
I don't know what tank you're referring to. The commission doesn't have tanks.
Yeah, it does. Tony? It's in Des Plaines, by the way.
Yeah, you're talking about the underground storage that we have over at the Northwest Water Commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how many millions of gallons it is. There's 3 separate tanks over there. One wall blew out when they were constructing it. But I don't know how many gallons is over there.
Right, it's minimal. I mean, the reality is, should that straw go down, there's going to be a situation. And that's why we maintain and pay to maintain not only the storage, but the wells so that we have another supply.
I seriously take a look at, I don't recollect too much about the well, but I know we had discussed a new well because all our other ones are pretty much kaput.
We did, and the board decided that that's not the direction to move in.
Maybe we should keep it close because we might need it someday.
Well, I got to ask you a question regarding the well. If I recall, in the sewer and water CIP, a 3rd well has been allocated in the budget for how many years now? That's been going on for a long time. I remember seeing that for the specific reason Trustee Brady's bringing up about having a good reserve here in the event, God forbid, something were to happen to our towers or anything else, that we would have that capacity to serve this community.
Well, we do have capacity. We don't have, we have 2 wells, and they produce, like Tony said, about 3 million gallons. They could produce about 3 million gallons. That's a substantial amount of our normal usage per day. It's not the total amount. If we had to do another well, which would allow us to have enough well capacity for everyday use, we could do that, but it comes at a cost, both new and maintenance. The fact that we have the straw, obviously, with the Northwest Water Commission, and this alternate straw with the City of Chicago through Des Plaines, it's a function of how much money you have and how much backup you want to have. We did go through this with the board. It was decided that at this moment in time, we don't need another well.
Right, we actually just had this discussion at the board level within the last couple of months. And one of the things that we are doing at the commission level is looping the system. There's a project in Buffalo Grove and a project in Palatine that will loop all 4 communities. Now, that doesn't address the transmission main that's coming from Evanston, but should any individual town go down, because there's a lot more main than just what's coming from Evanston, once that loop is completed, we can get water to and between each of the 4-member communities should any of the transmission lines between communities go down. That's a huge benefit. But as Mark said, we had this conversation not all that long ago. and decided that the investment wasn't worth it. Certainly.
Process now?
Yes, the looping projects are happening now. It's not being planned. The looping projects are both current projects.
Go ahead.
Thank you. You know, this day and age, you just don't know what's going to happen out there. When one person can take down the FAA and stop airline traffic in the entire country, what's to prevent somebody from doing something like that to us? Even though we're going to be linked to the other communities and we'll be assured water, I don't think we should ever put ourselves in a position where we have to rely on somebody else when we have the capacity and the wherewithal to do that, and that is another well. Years ago, when we used to get into problems and situations with supplying water in this community, we used to be able to tap into Echo Products, who is now Reynolds Aluminum, and they have their own wells. I don't know if they still have their own wells. They don't. Okay, well then that washes that out, because we used to tap into that once in a while when we had to. So water is a very important commodity, so let's not shortchange ourselves and put ourselves in harm's way with not having enough water. You got to have water.
Anything else?
Mr. President.
Trustee Kruger?
Thank you. This just came up when I was listening to my colleagues discuss this. Could Des Plaines resell water?
No.
There's provision in the contract that says that, because they have the straw with Chicago and now they'll have with us, and perhaps they find that they have a surplus and they choose to sell. We made sure that they cannot do that.
Correct.
Great. Thanks.
Anything else?
So move.
Motion by trustee Lang.
Second.
Second by trustee Vogel. Roll call.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Juris?
Yes, thank you. Good job, staff, on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Discussion regarding compensatory stormwater storage policy.
Thank you. Manager Sfondolos.
Thank you. This is a topic we've talked about a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. And this is in regard to our existing compensatory storage ratio. Currently, our code lists comp storage to be at a rate of 1.5 to 1. That was explained by our village engineer, John Tack, a couple of weeks ago, so I won't bore you with, not that it was boring, John, but I won't go through a whole other explanation about acre feet and all that. But what's been provided to you is a memo that looks a little bit at what other communities are doing with regard to their code language for compensatory storage, and talks a little bit about what our options are as far as moving forward. Again, the board had asked to have this discussion, and with the information that's been provided, we see that there are really three options. One, that we could leave the code the way it is, 1.5 to 1. Two, we could meet the county standard of 1.1 to 1. Or we could leave the code at 1.5 to 1, but realize that there's going to need to be a process by which each project is reviewed individually, and should there need to be relief from that, the board can grant that on a project-by-project basis. Again, I don't know that there's much more of an explanation needed. I think this is more of an opportunity for the board to ask questions before making a decision on how to direct staff to move forward. Director Janik is here, Village Engineer Tack is here, and certainly I can answer anything that I can. So with that, I would turn it over to the Village President and ask if there are any questions.
Questions from the board? We start with trustee Lang.
Well, I'm in favor of reducing the ratio, probably, if this is possible, with the exceptions of real flood-prone areas, you know, Jackson Drive, Wheeling Road, East Wayne, and so on. Is there a way to
All or one.
No, I would really say there's not. I mean, for instance, Jackson Drive, just as an example, it's not in the floodplain. They get a lot of standing water. The road is overtopped by water at least once a year, typically. But that's not in the floodplain. Wheeling Road is the area that gets blocked by water. So we couldn't differentiate different floodplain areas. We'd have to be one. You have to, if you want to reduce the amount in the floodplain, it would be any floodplain, because there are areas in town that actually get water that aren't floodplain, and some floodplain areas you don't see water on.
What, if we did it on a case-by-case basis, what would be some examples of some areas or some projects that we would?
Well, just recently, the board, on a case-by-case basis, there was a variation provided to the 17 acres at the corner of Lake Cook Road and Milwaukee Avenue. There was a variation on that property from 1.5 to 1 to 1. Okay, from 1.5 to 1 to 1 to 1. That was a case, the only case so far that there's been a variation from the 1.5 to 1. Another case that could have happened to was Northgate Crossing. What happened there is they're providing 1.5 to 1, but on site they're providing 1 to 1, and then they're asking us, and we agreed to provide them the balance of their compensatory storage coming out of Heritage Park here. So they did provide 1.5 to 1. They did it in a little bit complicated manner, but they did. So when you say case by case, what that means to me is that some properties might receive variation and some might not.
Right.
Okay. And that would be, as John mentioned, that would be the situation where the code would stay the same. And as properties came up, we would review them and decide whether or not they should provide some on their property or they shouldn't, and then bring it to the board, and the board would decide whether or not to be a variation or whether it be compensatory storage provided from our amount that we have in Heritage Park.
It would be, to do it case by case, it seems to be pretty flexible and allow us a little bit more to review.
That's correct.
The
There'd be more
projects.
checks and balances.
Yeah. Thank you.
Trustee Vogel?
Just one question, maybe off the wall. If it's not a floodplain, we're not required to have storage.
You're not required to have compensatory storage. That's correct. You're still required to have detention, but not compensatory storage. That's correct.
What would it do economically if we said that any buildable land or any open land at this point in time, if you want to build on it, you have to have comp and put the ratio much lower?
Well, I think what you would do, you couldn't, I don't think technically you could require compensatory storage, because that's only when you're taking volume out of the floodplain. But what you would do is you'd increase your detention requirements, your detention requirements.
Would that assist in lowering that 1.5 ratio then?
No.
In other areas?
It wouldn't. It's two completely different water storage philosophies.
Okay. All right. It's just like I said, it was off the wall, but okay. Thank you.
Trustee Hein?
I think that we have to stay at the 1.5. We have some flooding issues in our community, and it's served us well at the 1.5. Other communities like Northbrook, Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect are still at the 1.5. Whether we control it by allowing a developer to come to us and doing some horse trading, so to speak, but I would not like to go down to 1.1.
Trustee Brady?
I always thought this ordinance was increased years ago because of the fact that we did flood so readily, and areas around us, there wasn't the big movement that there is lately about helping out with some of this flood water. I mean, between the counties and states and the federal government, a lot of attention is brought to the fact that we have flood problems around here. Look at Levy 37 and all the other projects that have been going on around us, and look at the property in Wheeling that has come out of the floodplain these past 10, 15 years or more. Probably more than half of the floodplain is gone because of these improvements. And you know, 1.5 is a tough deal to meet sometimes when you get small parcels of property and you want to build something decent on it. You know, the size of these ponds or whatever is necessary, and it kind of overwhelms the project and doesn't make it feasible. Redevelopment, don't forget, is buying property that's already been developed on, and it costs, probably the cost increase in redeveloping that property is greater than empty property. So there's something to look at if you want to keep things moving as far as redevelopment goes. I don't know. You know, 1.1 seems like it should work. I have a question. Some of these projects, these developments that we have around here, and I don't know whether it's compensatory or storage or whatever it is, these ponds and some of these residential developments, is that because of the floodplain that they're there?
No, generally speaking, there's not very many projects that have happened in Wheeling that have been in the floodplain. There have been some, but not very many. So most of the residential projects you see, those basins that they have, those are for detention
just
water.
Detention.
Correct.
I would hate to pass a resolution like this here, and all of a sudden, one of these projects that have these types of ponds to use for the storage, all of a sudden, if we lower that 1.5 to 1.1, they could reclaim some of that property, and they, I don't know if I want that to happen because we're having trouble with them maintaining these ponds as it is. I don't know. I would like to go for 1.1 if at all possible, but only if we really investigate what it's going to do to us and what our future is in the way of plans for remediation of these flooded areas.
Trustee Kruger?
Thank you. I studied, and please forgive my voice, it's about all that's left after a long bout of a cold. I studied this topic with trying to unwrap my brain around the fact that Wheeling is at the bottom of the funnel, so to speak, from upstream water. And we're just dealing and talking about our floodplains right now, so, but overall, I'll always err on the side of caution if I have the opportunity to, when it comes to controlling stormwater and flooding in Wheeling. I think we determined at the last meeting where John Tack spoke that changing this code will not change our CRS rating. So for that reason alone, then why change it? So I would say that would be an argument to keep it the way it is. I understand that other communities upstream, many that you provided and many that I looked up myself, mostly in Lake County, have adopted the Lake and Cook County regulation. To me, that doesn't mean we have to. And I look at this restrictive code as like our last filter to protect our citizens and protect our businesses, especially those in the floodplain, from the possibility of flooding. I'm not a fan of handing out variations to code either, but I feel like if we deal it with each new development on a case-by-case basis, we have this one last filter that we can look at depending on what it is they actually want to build in a floodplain. And then by way of the offerings that we have with Heritage Park or anything else that we could do to help offset, or as a last-ditch effort, provide that variance if the development warrants it, then at least I feel like I can say that we were absolutely vigilant about what we chose to allow to be built on these sensitive properties. And I do have a question for you, Mark, and that is, how do we know how much comp storage is needed for the properties that are undeveloped in the floodplain where developers might want to come to build?
There's most of the floodplain that is in the village that is, let's say, it's developable, or areas that would be developed. There's a lot of it's along Dundee Road here. And as a matter of fact, what we need to do is survey the property, because we don't have surveys of all these properties here. And what the survey would show us would be the amount or the elevation of the properties relative to the existing floodplain. if we knew that, then we'd be able to calculate to some or more extent, say the worst case scenario, if somebody wanted to fill their entire property, how much compensatory storage they would be asking us for. So as a matter of fact, that's one thing John and I have talked about. I have not brought to the village manager, but if we had surveys of the properties up and down Dundee Road here, we would be able to know, and we would be able to look at a property and say, that property, just internally, we would say that property needs X amount of storage if they maxed out the property. And then we would have some idea from what we have here and how much we would need.
Now, here's the tough question. How much would that cost?
We did get a quote for the properties on the north side Dundee Road from Wolf Road to the railroad tracks. That was about $9,000. Now that's a little bit easier to survey. There's no construction there. There's no existing buildings. It's easy to get on the property. The other ones to the west, for instance, the Meyer Material property, Kmart's, Linsky's property, farther west, a little bit harder to do. So I think it's somewhere in the range of $20,000.
And with this new survey and topography, we could better then be able to dole out our ration of comp storage with Heritage Park?
I think wouldn't be doling it out to them yet, because we don't know what they would propose to do on their property.
Right.
We would always try to get people to put as much compensatory storage on their property as possible. If they couldn't, or if they came to us and said, look, we've tried, we need some help, that's when we would think about providing some compensatory storage from Heritage Park, and that's why we would come to the board and come to you with our opinion as to whether or not they should have it or they shouldn't have it.
Thank you. Overall, I'd prefer to leave the ratio at 1.5 to 1.
Thank you. Trustee here.
I too, 1.5 to 1. I could see going with case by case too, in that vein of it. But I don't want to reinvent the wheel with what was said here tonight, but I think we have to wait and see what people propose for these properties. And I think having that study done, that would help. But to just blanketly say, let's change it or do this or do that, I think it's being premature, but just leave it.
Trustee Hang had another question.
Thank you. Didn't Lake County do a study from Rand Road to down Dundee Road about 3-4 years ago, where they were doing new elevations and such, and they were putting together a new elevation plan and for the properties that started at Rand Road and it came north, and it was predicated on everything on Dundee Road. Because when we were at Century 21 across the street years ago, they had crews out here for months, taking a look at all the properties going down Dundee Road. And I asked the gentleman, I asked them what they were doing there, and they said that they were restudying the elevations that were there for the floodplain and such. Has there anything been done with that?
I'm not familiar with that specific survey work. The most recent, I believe the most recent FEMA maps that were done in this area were 2008. Most of the elevations that you can get today on property out here they're 1 foot elevations, but they're aerial, they're flown, and they're able to determine generally what the property elevations are. When you do the survey, though, you get a much closer idea of where the floodplain is, where the elevations are. That's why I would propose that we would do survey work. I can look and see. I'm not sure what that study was. I can look for that, but that's why we would do the survey work.
Okay. I have one more question. Have we ever had a developer come into our community and say to us that we could do something with the 1.5, that he wasn't going to come in here and he didn't want to develop in the village of Wheeling? Has it ever been a situation where that has ever happened?
Not that I know of.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Got a question. South Milwaukee Avenue, there's floodplain issues there, village-owned properties, is correct?
That's correct.
How about the other vacant properties along Milwaukee Avenue, the old La Francais, Don Ross site?
There's some, La Francais, I don't believe has any floodplain, but the property adjacent to it to the south does, in the back. I don't believe the La Francais has any floodplain on it, though.
Today, that property, John, is being marketed together to create something there. Is that correct? How about the over by the Don Ross site? Do we know floodplain issues over there?
There is some floodplain on the east side of the Don Ross site. There is some floodplain there. That's correct. Probably, I'd say a third of that site has floodplain.
Any other village property along Milwaukee Avenue, next to Tuscany? A parcel there, the 2 acres?
The property that the fire station was located, or is located on, there was floodplain issues there. We were able to build around that. The property on the South Milwaukee Avenue, the way it's designed right now, we can't avoid the floodplain or the floodway, but we're working around it.
434, though, next to Tuscany? I don't believe there is, but that's what you're asking.
That's what I was asking.
No, I'm sorry. I do not believe there's any floodplain on that property.
You know, I brought this up, and I've had numerous conversations with Mark and with other members of staff regarding this ordinance. And I think it's a testament, and I brought this up before, that I think by the village being proactive with the programs that we've implemented through the years, whether it be the diversionary, whether it be many other things that we've done here, that enabled us to get the favorable CRS rating that we have today, not because of our 1.5 to 1. It's not because of that, believe me. And to continue to do variances when this economic engine of ours is starting to roll, whether it be to the north, whether it be here at Town Center. I mean, the village of Wheeling, we took a lot of people out of the floodplain, you know, where they didn't need flood insurance, because we did a village-wide flood mitigation program and the remapping that hadn't been done in years. And by the federal agencies, it's been recognized that, you know what, Wheeling's done a great job doing what they're doing. But I got a real problem with going beyond. Again, I've said this from day one. We're a community of, 7.5 miles square, landlocked. And we look at our neighbors on the list that are 1.5 to 1, the Arlington Heights of the world, the Mount Prospects of the world, where they're 5 times our size. 5 times our size. I look at Lake County at 1.1 to 1. I look at Cook County at 1.1 to 1. And here we are Wheeling, and I truly believe that the village became so stagnant through the years because of the restrictions that we in place. And then constantly through the Plan Commission, Ken, you remember, Ray as well, how many times we've done variances for, it seemed like everything that came before was a variance. And thanks for the help of the Plan Commission, they've looked at these antiquated ordinances, zoning ordinances that were 30, 40 years out, and brought it to the 21st century because it didn't make sense anymore. So, again, I'm not in favor of giving variances all the time. The question was asked to Mr. Janik, to the best of your knowledge, as Community Development Director, which hasn't been that long, what is it, 9 years now, 7 years, 5 years? Has anybody not been told that they can't build or didn't want to build because of the restriction? I think Mr. Janik and his staff is smart enough to say that you can always ask for a variance. I guess I question is what was said 20 years ago, 10 years ago, where truly this community had the mentality of can't do. And we're all witnesses of that. We all know that. So I'm not talking out of turn here. So, again, I think by what we're doing is we're on the right track. We've created acre feet of storage throughout this community. We're spending money to do so. We're being proactive in doing it. The Heritage Park thing is a huge thing. The North Quadrant creating acre feet is a huge thing. We've done more probably than any of our neighbors around us have done in the last probably 2-3 years, which is a good thing. We've created a revenue source with these acre feet where it does come with a price. It's not free because it's helping the community village-wide. So That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the Milwaukee Avenue corridor. As we spoke with our consultant, that is really a melting pot of economic development in this community. There are properties that we need to get back on the tax rolls again. There are parcels of property that we need to put together again. And guess what? We're going to pay for that based on the restriction that's there today. So I think we really need to be proactive here and think a little bit out of the box. I believe we've helped our flooding issues in this community, and we continue to help the flooding committee. We are right now going through the study with the stormwater management utility, and to better the infrastructure that we have in place in this community than probably hasn't been done in many, many years. Mark, you and I talk, and you're passionate about the flood things, along with John Tack and Tony and everybody else. We're very conscious on it, and so is this board. And I don't think we'll be hurting ourselves. I think we'll end up helping ourselves more so. I can remember development coming into this town, and people had the fear that they were going to flood because a new condo building was going up or a new shopping center was going up, and they forgot it was vacant land, and all you had was runoff. You had nowhere to go. And you know what? We made people put detention. In some cases, they needed calm storage as well. That helped the environment around development. To me, that didn't hinder it. It didn't create more flooding problems. You manage flooding problems when you bring stuff like that. And I've learned that through the years being involved with the planners, with yourself, Mark, talking with our experts, with Burke, helping our Buffalo Creek stabilization, the banks. I mean, being proactive, managing our water supplies here. So that's why I'm glad this was brought up. And I agree with staff. And off the record, you know, it's a policy call by the board. But off the record, it makes sense, and I don't think it's a bad thing, and I don't truly believe it's going to hurt this community. I think it's going to help this community down the road. So if you have anything else to add, I'll ask for a consensus.
Can I ask
Sure.
one question?
I'm sorry.
Mark, if we, say for instance, we went 2-to-1, 3-to-1, okay, in coverage, that still isn't going to help an act of God terrible storm in this town that will flood areas, correct?
That's correct.
So we're going to get that. So just to differentiate, we're going to get that when there's a terrible rainstorm, and we're going to get that regardless of what we do for water storage.
That's right.
Okay.
What some of the, Trustee Brady brought it up, President Argyris did. There have been a lot of public projects that provided storage and conveyance of water out of the community. The diversionary channel, both of them, one goes north, one goes south, basically go through the airport. Both of those, they provide conveyance, but they also provide storage of water. We're not using it as storage, but you can see the size of the diversionary channel that goes adjacent to the airport there. It's massive. So that it gets water out of the community, but it also holds water, because when the Des Plaines backs up, it will back up into that channel, and there's a huge amount of storage that was put there that was never there before. So there's no question that the village is much better off than it was previously, and actually detention is really, in many cases, more important than the compensatory storage. Properties that aren't developed, runoff is unregulated, just runs off into Buffalo Creek or runs off into adjacent properties, whoever it is. When a property gets developed and you put detention there, and they have a restrictor pipe that allows that to go out at a certain rate, that's when you really start, I mean, it's contrarian thinking, but that's when you really start regulating the water in your community. And
everything works together. And that's why we have one of the strictest 1.5 retention, detention, and it's helped us a lot. It's made a big difference. And when you can tell me that whether they come in for a variation to it or not, okay, it has helped. And we can't predict that 500-year storm or that 100-year storm. But you know something? We're better off because of that. And I think that it is best for us because of the way we are and where we're situated in the flood areas and it's always been that way, and it's not going to go away. The only way it's going to happen is when they start holding back the water up in Lake County. And they start putting us some decent retention basins up there, just like they did with Levee 37 over here, and using the property in the Village of Wheeling to take care of somebody else. Now it's time for somebody up north to start putting some good detention and retention up there to keep the water from coming down Buffalo Grove Creek. That's the problem. And I just hope that we can work it out, and I know that it's not going to hurt the development in this town. If it did, we wouldn't have the Westin Hotel.
Well, thank you for your opinion.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go right to consensus here. And the question I'm going to ask and get a consensus on, as John and Mark had asked for, is to meet the county code of 1.1 to 1, where we mirror Lake County and Cook County and change the ordinance as it is. So I'm going to go with Trustee Brady, yes or no?
To 1.1?
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
No.
Trustee Hare?
Yeah.
Trustee Hein?
No.
And myself, yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2, change the ordinance to make the county. Thank you.
We'll put something together and get it on an agenda.
Thank you. Official communication, I'm going to start with you, Trustee Kruger.
I have nothing, thanks.
Feel better.
Thank you.
Trustee Hare?
Nothing, thanks.
Trustee Lang?
Thank you. Wanted to mention that at Chicago Executive Airport, there is a dedicated noise hotline that has been developed. I held back on saying anything in here about it until it was up and running. The number is 847-537-2580, extension 117. I'll give it again later. But this hotline has a dedicated person answering noise issues and will respond and record your complaints. It's a step that we're taking in the future to try to control what we can with the noise. We have some ideas, definite ideas of future for noise problems, and this is starting that effort. Again, it's 847-537-2580, extension 117. Thank you.
I'll add that.
Would you add that to our, I was going to say, and let's put that in the newsletter as well. So,
excellent.
Thanks. Trustee Hein?
Thank you. John, I sent you a memo last week about the Transportation Committee of the Northwest Municipal Conference having a representative from IDOT at this next meeting. And if you would please have your staff, i.e. the police department, put together some stats for me on the amount of accidents we have had from Wolf Road to Milwaukee Avenue on Dundee Road, and give me some numbers on what is the worst area in our community relative to accidents and speed and so on and so forth. I would greatly appreciate that.
Will do.
Thank you.
Trustee Vogel?
And just one thing, a comment. In our information packet, there was a little note about, Sherry, you're going to attempt to work with the high school on a Thanksgiving dinner. Is that in addition to what the Park District does right now?
I'm not aware of what the Park District does right now.
Okay, they also do the same thing, have a Thanksgiving dinner, usually the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And I think the last time some of us have worked it, I think there's about 250 people invited.
Okay, this is different. This is to be held at the restaurant that was mentioned there.
Okay.
And it's only, at this point, it was only through Wheeling High School.
Okay, and you're going to screen the candidates for it, and you're looking for volunteers?
Sure.
From anywhere or everyone, or from the board?
At this point, I'm not sure what the need is for volunteers, but if you're interested, let me know.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Trustee Brady?
I'm just wondering, yesterday, actually all weekend, I was kind of sitting there freezing my fanny off, and it come to mind for some reason, where are we at with the snow shovel program we're trying to get for to help seniors? Because I know a few that probably could use some help. Sherry?
Well, at this point, we are waiting to put the applications online, but I have been in conversations with members of coaches of the athletic program at Wheeling High School to try to recruit some of their student athletes to work with us for volunteers. And I am getting very close to having about 20 students that will be able to help. So the information will be in the village newsletter, which will go out in November. And I anticipate at that point we should be getting applications and requests for assistance.
Maybe you should, even before that, if you're sure that the program is going to fly, why don't you put that application request out a little sooner so people can be, ready for it. That first snow might be here before you have this done.
Right, I'm just waiting for IT to get it on the website. It's ready. We're just, we're ready. If someone were to call us, we could take applications now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Clerk Simpson?
I have a few.
Good.
The Wheeling Garden Club this coming Wednesday at the Senior Pavilion at 199 First Street. Their program this month is Designing with Fruits and Vegetables by John Edgar, and it starts at 7 p.m. The Wheeling Historical Society on Wednesday, October 22nd, Rochelle Pennington will be speaking about the Christmas tree ship, which we all know comes into Lake Michigan, and they give away free trees. That event will take place at Chamber Park at 6:30 p.m. and it's free, and there's free refreshments. And then the WCPAAA, which is really the Wheeling Police Academy Alumni Association, is having their second luau on Saturday, October 25th. The dinner will be at 5 p.m. Doors open at 5, dinner at 6. Children under the age of 5 are free. Children 10 to 6 are $10. Adults are $20. And it'll be at the St. Joseph Community Center in back of St. Joseph. And if you're interested in getting tickets, please call Debbie at 847-322-2195.
That's it?
Yes, and that's a good thing, the luau. It's a lot of fun.
It was great last year. It was fun. Chief Benson dances well up there.
Yes, he
shakes
did.
it up. Not me, you did. Manager Fondos.
Thank you. The only thing is I would like to remind the board and the public that our next meeting will be Monday, October 27th. Monday, October 27th is our next meeting.
Okay, great. Myself, I think everything's been said tonight. Well, the restaurant that Trustee Vogel and Sherry were talking about is Spears, and I think the generosity of that establishment over there is to be commended for volunteering that and doing that. I think it's even though the Park District does it, there's always a need for that place to open up just for those who are in need. So kudos to them. All right, we do have approval of the bills for September 18th through October 1st, 2014. I entertain a motion to approval.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Hines, second by Trustee Vogel. Roll call, please.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Argyris?
Yes, thank you. We do have executive session this evening to discuss, review, and approval of minutes of executive session lawful closed under the Open Meetings Act, pending probable or imminent litigation, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee or employees of the Village of Wheeling. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Harris, second by Trustee Kruger.
Scratchy.
Scratchy.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Argyris?
Yes, we're going to executive session at 8:25. Thank you.